Hello, wonderful viewers, and welcome to Flavours of Africa, Canada's first African cooking talk show. And happy Easter to all of you wonderful people celebrating today. Easter is so special because it reminds us of Jesus Christ's resurrection. As Christians, we believe that he died and on the third day he rose. Indeed, he's risen. Easter is the time that I remind myself about forgiveness because this was what my parents taught me. They talked extensively about forgiveness, forgiving your enemies. My dad especially, he was always saying, you must forgive. And I guess he got it from his mother, who was raised Catholic. Let me tell you a little bit about my grandmother. You know, it was during the annexation of our town in Delta State of Nigeria. That was when the British came to annex our town, and the then king told everyone to take up arms. So my great grandfather Pamwekwene did as he was instructed. So he defeated the British to submission. At the end, he faced a firing squad. So after the assassination of my great-grandfather, the same British that assassinated him started looking for his family, and they discovered that he had a little girl. So the British took my grandmother to the Italian missionaries stationed at Saba in Delta State of Nigeria. So my my grandmother was raised Catholic. So she talked about forgiveness of sins. And of course, her father was assassinated, but she never disliked anybody. She never hated anybody. She preached forgiveness. She talked extensively about Rome, even though she never visited. If my father also talked about Rome, Italy, you know, it was so dear to them because of their Catholic affiliation. So this is where I learned to forgive, that it doesn't matter what people do to you, you must forgive. And sometimes my friends, they say, how are you able to forgive when people do, or when people have done the unthinkable to you? Well, forgiveness it doesn't mean that you should go and sit down with those enemies. What forgiveness means to me is removing that hatred, forgiving them to forgive myself without carrying any burden. So that's what it's all about. That's my understanding about forgiveness. And I also know that what goes around comes around. So it's not for me to judge. And going back to my childhood, talking about my father again, how he always told me, forgive, you must forgive. And I will tell you a story about my father, how he was so generous. He had acres and acres of land. So I remember as a child when the Nigerian Civil War was starting out, and most people were returning home from the northern part of Nigeria. They didn't have any land to farm, nothing. So my dad divided his land and gave to all those people so that they could have food for their children. But you know, as the saying goes, man's wants are insatiable. So those people started fighting my dad for more land to the point that they started taking my father's land. And they started fighting my father. And my father would say, leave it to God, fight what you can fight, choose your battle. So over the years, even when I came to Canada, the fight was still going on. And one day I traveled to Nigeria and I said to my dad, are those people still fighting you because you've not been writing to me about the fights? And my dad laughed. I said, Papa, what's going on? He said, remember I told you that God is always in control. Whatever happens to you, take it to God. Give Him your burden and He will give you rest. I say, yes, you did tell me that. So he told me that one of the guys or the people fighting him for his land, he said, you know, if you do it anywhere, you do it everywhere. I said, okay, tell me the story, because my dad was also a great storyteller. So he told me that the guy, the ring leader, came and started fighting his grandchild. And if you know about Nigerian rainy season, is harsh, and especially because we don't have paved roads in the rural areas. When it rains, it was always muddy. And so this guy started fighting his grandchild, calling him all sort of names. So the little child started, fighting back. And if you know our tradition, African tradition, you cannot insult an elder. So this man was infuriated. He chased after his grandson. As he was running, he slipped. And that was it. That was the end of him. I was shocked. So you do it anywhere, you do it everywhere. And this is the reason why you cannot take any law into your hand. You cannot fight anyone. You do the best you can. You leave the fight to God. Like I say, fight what you can fight, and what you can't fight, you leave it to God, because He is the final judge. He is. So that taught me a great lesson, that it's not for you to carry any burden. Leave it to God. And let God decide what He chooses to decide. Back to the same land, because land is huge in Nigeria. Now, families are not together because of land. They fight every time they want someone's land. So the same thing happened in front of my house. In 2001, I went home when my dad passed on. And this lady in front, the same thing, my dad had given them a piece of land to have a tailoring business, and they started encroaching. And then they started fighting us, and I said, why? How is this going to end? And I prayed to God. I said, why, God, you take control, take the wheel. So one day I was here in 2006, true story. So the same woman that was fighting us for the land in front of our house started fighting someone in a nearby town, and she wanted their land, she wanted their buildings, everything. So those people said, no, you can't do this to us. And this lady started hyperventilating. They took her to the hospital. That was it. It's not your fight. You do it anywhere, you do it everywhere. So people that are fighting, you think they don't fight other people. It's not for you. You cannot take up arms against your enemies and say, oh, you do this, I'm going to revenge. No, you can never revenge. Vengeance is mine, says the Lord. That's how I live my life. And people, sometimes they will look at me, they say, yeah, like you wonderful viewers, they say, oh, you're so ebullient. It's simply because I know that there is God up there that fights for me, and I have nothing to worry about. I will never hate my enemies. However, it's so important to know who your enemies are. It's very, very important. You must know your enemies so you know who you are avoiding. Why you don't hate them, you know who they are. Very important. And I can stay here and tell you so many stories, because I have stories. I have lots of stories, wonderful viewers. However, what I'm going to continue to believe, and probably people will also do the same thing, is to know that vengeance is for the Lord. Whatever people do to you is simply because they know that you are an anointed. You are God's chosen. They know you're going high. If people don't believe that you are someone great, do you think they will be fighting you? They won't fight you. So it's not for you to have any reaction. I have been in places where I've seen things And I said, no, I will never be angry. I will never waste one day thinking, oh, somebody has done something to me, this, that. You don't want to carry the baggage. You just want to leave it, take it to the Lord in prayer. So as we continue to remember Jesus Christ who died for us, because he was given to us by his Father. For God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son, that whoever believeth in him shall never perish, but have an everlasting life. John 3:16. I love it. I love it. So these are the principles that I live by. Honoring God, doing the right thing. So the other thing that my dad taught me was about rumors. He said, never do rumors. Never slander anybody. It's even in the Bible for Christians, for us Christians. Because rumors, what happens is that rumors are made to destroy. Oh yes, the moment you hear the rumors, people start listening. They say, people start judging you. But eventually, let me tell you, it might take 2 decades. The true story will come out. And guess what will happen? Those people spreading false rumors are never true anyway. They will start hiding. This is what happens. And I have always said that the wicked shall never go unpunished. So no matter what people do to you, do to me, we give it to God, because God knows the heart of all men. Wonderful viewers, today we are making a special dish from Senegal, and that's Senegalese Jollof Rice. It's gonna be so tasty. I have all the ingredients laid out for you, wonderful viewers. We have tilapia. I've chosen tilapia because Senegalese people, they eat lots of tilapia. Nigerians do as well. And I'm going to make suya just to complement the dish. And so let's get cooking. we've come to the end of our show today, and thank you for tuning in. And remember that food is culture. Cultures that eat together stay together. Through food, we can appreciate diversity and promote cultural unity. Cheers to you, wonderful